Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Well, welcome aboard. So glad to have you along on this Wednesday as we come on live from the studios of Annunciation Radio. Faith with Reasons on this 25th day of September. Welcome to fall. Yeah, and there's a little nip in the air today, too.
Yeah.
Ron and Shayne here with Monsignor Charles Singler. So we're looking forward to today's show. Shayne, how you doing?
I'm peachy. And blessed.
Peachy and blessed.
And blessed.
That's good. That's a great combination.
I was going to say it was an episode of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but there was no planes involved. It was automobiles and trains. And
oh, yeah?
When you have a train block in the automobiles, you have
That'll do it.
Like I said, I walked into the studio. I don't know how I got over here as quickly as I did, having to backtrack as far as I had to go. But
yeah, I had a detour this morning on the way, and there was an accident that was blocking the intersection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hope everybody's okay. And I understand you were at the event last night for Little Sisters.
Yes, absolutely. We attended last year, and we had to go again this year. It was a fantastic celebration. Of course, an amazing fundraiser. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, it's probably the only fundraiser that they have. I could be wrong about that, but
I believe so. It's certainly the most major one.
And the last year there was a focus on having to do some significant repairs, they were back at it again. They mentioned several things that were still ongoing, not as major as they were last year, but they are continuing with renovation. So we were really blessed to help them out with that fantastic auction.
Great. Yeah, I want to hear all about the event because I was not in attendance last night, but actually I've got two of you in studio that were there. Monsignor Charles Singler is joining us. He's of course pastor of St. Rose of Lima in Perrysburg there. And, of course, we know Monsignor, who's really been a part of this radio station, this radio apostolate for many years. Mm-hmm. We turn to him quite frequently for
it's good to be here.
Anything doctrinal, anything liturgical, and has always been ready to help us out and really kind of bring that spirit to our listeners.
Well, I'm really grateful to be here today because, as you may recall, when I was here last spring for Holy Week, I was in a parking lot answering your questions.
It was tire trouble, right?
Yeah, car trouble, yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Glad you made it here today.
I didn't bring my phone with me this time, and I thought, oh my gosh, if something happens, I said, Lord, I'm really trusting you today.
You could have been stuck at the same train that Shayne was.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, before we get into all of our topics today, how about a little, reflection or fly on the wall type analysis from last night's event, the Celebrity Chefs event for the Little Sisters?
Well, actually, it wasn't the Little Sisters. It was the Visitation Sisters.
Sisters.
Used to be,
yes.
The event started many years ago for the Little Sisters of the Poor, who had the Sacred Heart Home for the Aged in Oregon. And when they left the diocese, some really wonderful people must have, I don't know if they coerced the Visitation Sisters or asked, would you like to have our support in this way? And they accepted. And I think they said this was the 5th annual for the Visitation Sisters event at the Pinnacle in Maumee. And I had done it for the Little Sisters. This was the first time that I was there for the event for the Visitation Sisters. And there were over 500 people there, they said, last night.
And you were a celebrity chef.
I was a celebrity chef. I did not do any cooking. I did the serving, but, they have the priests that are there. We had a great representation from the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales, who are very much connected with the Visitation Sisters because of St. Francis de Sales, and a number of diocesan priests, pastors in the city of Toledo that were there last night as well. So we had our cooking coats on, our chef coats, and our chef hats.
It's pretty impressive to see.
Yes, and so it was just a great event. Three particular stations set up in the room, what we used to call years ago a gourmet grazing, where you would come up and get a small plate, and then you could go to another area if you wanted to, or come back to the same one if I guess you wanted to. And so it was a very filling event or whatever, but it was just a great number of people, lots of folks that I have known over the 40 years of my priesthood. In the city of Toledo and the regional areas. Some people came from out of town as well, as a way of supporting the sisters and their their apostolate of prayer. They were brought to the Diocese of Toledo by our first bishop, Bishop Joseph Schrems, back in 1910, actually.
Wow.
So they've been around as long as the diocese has, and they've had this little monastery built on Parkside, and the sisters, all their apostolate is simply to pray for the people of the diocese, the priests, the religious, and the laity of the Diocese of Toledo. And they're wonderful women. 3 of them were present at the event, and Mother Sharon Elizabeth spoke. I think this is a second round for her as superior. And the other one that was the superior, I kind of handed it off to her. She was there too, but I don't remember her name. But she said hello. It was just a fantastic evening. A great spirit. And those sisters, it was a great event to be with them. And I know that they are eternally grateful for the support of the donors that came to the event last night, and for their good work. Bishop Thomas was there. Yeah. So it was nice to have the bishop there as well.
And so needed support too, because as you mentioned, you go back that many years. That monastery, it's a lot to upkeep. And they've had some, major issues.
Your mother went down a list of kind of a litany of listings of things that have happened in recent time, but other things that are going on in the with the maintenance of the buildings, and
they've always been there,
right?
So you do the math. I mean, they were in 1910, so the building would probably existed before that period of time, and you've got some serious upkeep.
There's a great symbolism with the monastery, with being situated right where it is on Parkside, surrounded by a Calvary cemetery. I think there's a commentary written. I think I read it somewhere of the comment that was made that the monastery is nestled in the city of the living. Eternal living. And it's just a great. And I've been there with the bishop before for masses, and have conversed had mass a number of years ago for the sisters, and they just are really great prayers, and you can tell that their prayer is very sincere, and that they have all of us in mind in those prayers that they offer daily.
We had them praying for success of our Share-a-thon.
Now that would be a group definitely you want to go to.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know there's a lot of highlights from the night, and Monsignor, you and I were talking before the show started about an artist that was there.
Yeah, I can't remember, Shayne. Did they call him a speed artist?
Speed artist, yes. And he's out of Michigan, and for the life of me, he
came from Honolulu. He was in Honolulu recently.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to Ron before we came in on the air here, there was a black painted stretched canvas.
6x8.
6x8, okay. And it was totally painted black.
Yep.
And there was a black backdrop of drapery behind it. And he took his fingers. It was like finger painting, actually. It was not with a brush. But he took his hands and he dipped it in different I would say pastel colors, which once they're applied to that black canvas stood out in a real wonderful way. But what he ended up with, at first I thought, what is he drawing? And what is he trying to create here? It actually was the face of Jesus.
It was the face of Jesus, and it was an image that was low light. So what he had done is basically finger painted the highlights of the hair, the highlights of the face, the cheekbones, and pretty much got half of the face, and then concentrated on what would be the right eye. And he finished by dotting the eye, and then he signed it by smacking his hand at the upper right corner. But he was very energetic. He was bouncing around from side to side, and I believe that he painted that in one song.
Right.
And you want to talk about speed painting, a 6x8 canvas, and he does this portrait of Christ's face. And he paints it in, and it was, I didn't recognize the song, maybe the artist, but it was Christian contemporary.
Right.
And and every now and then he'd stop and he'd look up and he'd point upward, and he'd do the sign up, close his hands together, and he was just so grateful and just so filled full of joy, and then he stopped and and afterwards and he gave a witness to how he started with this, because I believe it was a basketball. He looked forward to a career in basketball, and that was never going to happen. I think it was health reasons. And he began or he thought he would begin in a career of art. He had dabbled in art, and I believe it was a priest that encouraged him to come and paint in front of people because he noticed he had a talent. And he said no. I mean, and if I remember correctly, hundreds of people.
Yes,
hundreds of people. And he said, "I'm crazy. It's like, this is not going to work." And I thought he was going to say he talked himself out of it, but he went through it. And he described the portrait of Christ, black and white, hanging upon the cross. It was the Passion, the crown of thorns, and I pictured how he was describing it as maybe a view looking up and looking down and seeing the back of Christ's head bowed down as he was stretched on the cross. And the very last thing that he was moved to do, he said he reached down and took a hand of red paint and just slashed it across. And he said the gasp, he said it was palpable.
Wow.
In everybody that was witness in the end, and he thought he failed. He thought that, but that was what started his 18 years now. He's been doing this, traveling the world.
Wow. Well, I'm glad they brought him because at first I thought I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but in fact, the image of the face of Jesus reminded me of the guy in The Chosen.
Yeah. Striking,
very much. Looked very similar to him. So,
I mean, I'll give them credit because Jonathan the Rumi, he has a look about him that is very similar to just about every mainstream image you see of Jesus,
right?
And that's striking. That that they were able to put him into that position, and I just think it's really a blessing that there's this similarity between everybody that's filled that role,
right?
That you can pick features out, and it's like there's a striking resemblance there. Yeah.
One of many highlights, I'm sure, from that wonderful event at the Pinnacle last night for the Visitation Sisters. 500 people, you say, were there. So, a lot of people got a chance to witness it. Beautiful.
And I would encourage anybody listening, this is an open event. You don't have to go by invitation. You just have to be aware that it takes place this time every year. And just be aware that there are tickets that are for sale, and they do make their money, or they earn their money by selling tickets. And I think it was $100.
That I can't be sure of.
Yeah, I'm not certain of this, but I think it's $100. But it goes for a good cause.
Yeah.
And that includes open bar. That includes these meals. And as you mentioned before, Monsignor, when I say small plates, these are individual complete meals.
Right.
So they'll serve a mini salad with it, and you get a full plate of the salmon. You had
salmon. We had a marinara sauce over
ravioli
with it, and then also a scoop of
vegetables, wild rice and vegetables,
green beans and carrots.
Yes. And so they had a beef table, and that was similar. So you have a piece of beef, and it had some sort of
roasted potatoes.
Yes, roasted potatoes,
and a mixed California blend.
Yeah.
It's mighty close to dinner time, and you guys are making me hungry.
Yeah, we're probably making our listeners hungry too.
Definitely want to. And the one thing I love about the Visitation Sisters, I mean, they don't really have a marketing department, right? So it's not like they're out there. So you want to make sure that you kind of keep your radar for next year.
Yeah, it goes for a good cause, and it really is like a gala. So you go there, and you've got every reason to dress up and celebrate with them as they earn some money for their ongoing renovations.
Right.
Absolutely. And Monsignor Charles Singler is in studio with us now, and I know tonight. About 10 minutes after our show concludes, there's going to be a rosary that kicks off the 40 Days for Life prayer rally down there on West Sylvania Avenue at North Haven, and it's right there in the parking lot adjacent to Toledo's last remaining abortion facility. So we invite everybody to stop out. Father Kevin Mobius is going to be leading that rosary, and then, of course, they've got a wonderful speaker, Tiffany Crane, who's the executive director of the Nest in Bowling Green, will give a keynote as well. And if you have not signed up yet for 40 Days for Life, please do so. And a lot of parish groups and other groups are like picking their day and organizing, to come
We have
on
at
out.
St. Rose in Perrysburg, our 8th graders are always involved each year. Mrs. Ann Breyer is one of our 8th grade teachers at St. Rose, and she is on the Respect Life Committee at St. Rose. She's a member of the parish. And each year they put out the white crosses to represent so many abortions that are taking place. This year they put them out right between the church and the rectory on Front Street, just as a kind of a visual reminder to all of us.
That is very moving
of
to
the
see
number
as you're driving
of
by.
abortions that take place, in our state of Ohio. And of course, after the election that we had, this last year, after Roe v. Wade was overturned and then became legalized in our own state, it makes all the work even more. I probably suspect that some people may just want to raise their hands and say, I give up. But we can't do that, folks. We have to continue this championing of life and continuing in the good work of what the Lord asks of us.
Yeah, and one of the great ways to do that, of course, the public witness that your 8th graders are doing with those white crosses on the lawns is really a powerful image as you come by, and you can't help but think about it.
Right.
And hopefully that spurs some people to action, maybe spurs people to say a prayer, to get involved in the pro-life community somehow, and especially now during this 40 Days for Life campaign, which just starts today, and continues into early November, to sign up 40daysforlife.com/Toledo, and you can pick your slot there, and it's not 24/7, so you don't have to be there at 3 a.m. I mean, you're just
right,
there
and they have resources along with that too.
Absolutely.
And they supplemental resources for those that can't get out or want to, or just more homebound and want to continue to be connected prayerfully with the group for the cause.
Yeah, definitely. So. Yeah, 40daysforlife.com/Toledo. That's the number 40, by the way. Anyhow, 4:16 now, and Monsignor Charles Singler, our esteemed guest here on Faith with Reasons. Glad to have you back.
I'm honored. Thank you.
We don't get to have you too often because you're a very busy priest.
Running a parish, yeah.
I know. That's a pretty vibrant parish, too. I mean, you've got a lot of families in there and a lot of things happening at St. Rose between men's groups. You got Acts retreats. You got all kinds of things going on that people can get involved in. You're really keeping people engaged in their faith.
Yeah, we're gonna up the ante a little bit. We're having a ministry fair coming up the weekend of October 12th and 13th, trying to invite more folks to get involved in the various service ministries as well as committees and organizations in the parish. So they're going to, the ministry fair, I just called our coordinator today, Amy Ashmeyer, and she indicated to me that there are going to be 31 ministries in the parish available at the fair. So you go around to different tables and they'll have their published information and things that they're going to be putting out and answer questions from folks in the parish that wanting to involve.
Is that typical for a parish?
I think some of our large suburban parishes have ministry.
A good number.
A good number of those. But, even out in the rural setting, I was out in Putnam County and Miller City and New Cleveland, there was still activity going on. People were involved in their faith and wanting to get, retreats going and all those kinds of things. So, the work of the Holy Spirit in our diocese is really wonderful. We just have to inspire more young people to consider the priesthood. We got to get some more guys in the seminary. And as a former vocation director of the diocese, that's kind of one of the things in the back. My daily prayer always is for an increase in priests. Some of these priests that you've mentioned, Father Kevin Mobius, and we talked earlier about Father Nathan Backrath. Those guys are all my charges as vocation director. So, I feel very proud of the fact that these guys are doing those things. As Kevin and Nathan are both at Rosary Cathedral, living with the bishop now, but ministering to those communities, and still continue doing great work, for our people in those parish communities.
So especially, recently conducting that 65-mile walk. In 4 different locations over a series of 4 days, 4 consecutive days. 4 vocations to the
they didn't invite me to go to that, and if they did, I would have said to them, I will need a golf cart, and I'll just follow you guys, do your thing. Yeah, that was fabulous. That was really great.
Somebody has to provide the support, so that would be a legitimate job.
Yeah.
Water,
Drink cart.
So I was going to ask if you have, for those that don't know, you have a school attached to St. Rose. Do you find yourself doing additional things to foster that interest with your eighth grade boys?
Well, my associate, Father Kyle Gase, and I both spend time in the classrooms as well as in the lunchroom. We as we say, I always tell some of the teachers, my task is to rev them up and then I leave. No, I think oftentimes it's just basically a ministry of presence.
Yeah.
That the kindness that you exude for them and the interaction that you provide them, and I have lots of kids, ask me all kinds of questions. Today we had donuts for dads this morning before school started, so I'm sitting out there as all these kids are coming up with their dads for donuts, and a father brought his daughter, I'm not sure what grade, maybe 3rd or 4th grade, and he said to me, why doesn't St. Rose have any religious sisters teaching in the school? I said, that's a very good question. I said, I would love to have religious sisters teaching in our school, along with our lay teachers. It's just there aren't a lot of religious sisters who are available to do that. Religious orders have lots of requests. We're blessed in our diocese to have added, in most recent time, the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist from Ann Arbor in Findlay at St. Michael's Parish. And Father Eric just invited a group of sisters to serve in his parish, doing missionary work, there, evangelization. I think that there's a new religious life emerging in our country, but it's just it's going to take time for it.
They too are stretched thin, or they have been stretched thin. So that's great to point out.
Yeah.
But you bring up a great point. I mean, it's that presence, because they can see the priests that they would only normally see on Sundays, but they're interacting with them on a regular basis during the day, maybe joking with them, just being
or walking out on the playground,
just being a normal person, and they don't have that opportunity to see that interaction.
Well, I pack my lunch usually, or I'll eat lunch with the school children as well. So when they see me doing that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, he eats too."
He does that.
Oh yeah, and he looks like he eats, so that's good. That's really good. But it's a ministry of presence. And then also we supplement that too. If a teacher wants us, and we tell them at the beginning of the school year, if you would like Father Kyle and I to come in to do a religion lesson in your classroom, we'll be happy to do that. Yeah. So we try to do a lot more around Vocation Awareness Week in November. Yeah. And we have, a specific mass, and Father Chris Turner, one of our newly ordained priests, who's at my home parish in Sandusky, St. Mary's, and the tri-parish community there in Sandusky, is a native son of Perrysburg, and he went to St. Rose School. So I'm working on negotiating during Vocation Awareness Week to get him to come back to celebrate Mass for one of our Wednesday morning school masses at St. Rose, so that he can talk about that with the kids.
Yeah,
so,
very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of hope. There really is. And it's because of efforts like that, simple things sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they see something simple, and there's a little more behind it than what they know.
Well, it's funny because the adult people that are close to my age will always say, I remember Father so-and-so or Monsignor so-and-so who was at our parish. He would give out the report cards and, give us the evil eye if we had a mark that wasn't where it was supposed to be, or he had a smile and he brought candy, or he brought... They remember those things. Kids remember that kind of stuff. It's because they're formative, and so our presence with them is really important. It's part and parcel of my work as a pastor.
Very good. Yeah, very good.
Certainly keeps you busy. There's a lot to do, and a lot to have your fingers in, or at least your presence seen. So God bless you for your vocation, too.
Yeah.
And,
do you believe it's been 40 years? I celebrate 40 years.
I don't believe
Wow.
that. That's a happy anniversary.
Yeah, it's great. They say the anniversary is supposed to be celebrated for the year, so I'm celebrating the Jubilee for the year.
Oh, perfect.
That's great. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And, of course, we talked about the cathedral before. You spent, many years there, and among other places. And there's our Patronal Feast Day is coming up.
Yeah. It's interesting. Our cathedral was dedicated on the 1st and 2nd of October in 1941, and the celebration took 2 days to celebrate, which I find very interesting. As far as two events that took place, the consecration of the altar was the second day, but then there were other elements that were included with the blessing of the walls and consecration of the walls and that type of thing. So all of that was done in 2 days. The feast of, well, actually would be Teresa. It used to be St. Teresa was I believe on the 1st of October. So October is just chock full with all kinds of feasts. I was looking before we went on the air here, on the 2nd of October, we have the Guardian Angels. On the 4th of October, we have Francis of Assisi. On the 5th of October, we have St. Faustina. On the 7th, we have Our Lady of the Rosary. On the 11th of October, we have St. John the 23rd. On the 15th, we have St. Teresa of Avila. On the 17th, we have Ignatius of Antioch. On the 18th, we have St. Luke. And on the 22nd, which is going to be a significant one this year in our diocese, is St. John Paul II, which will be this year will mark in our diocese the 10th anniversary of our most wonderful Bishop Daniel Thomas, whom I had the privilege of living with for 3 years, and so he is a gem. I just hope the Lord doesn't take him from us with another appointment. I would love to keep him in Toledo, but that's up to the Pope and the Holy Spirit. So, but a big celebration coming up for that in the diocese. On Sunday, October 20th, at 3 p.m., there's going to be a Eucharistic Holy Hour, solemn Vespers, and veneration and enshrinement of the relic of Blessed Carlo Acutis. This is all at Rosary Cathedral. And then at 4:30 p.m. that day, on that Sunday afternoon, there's going to be a reception. And then the actual day of the bishop's anniversary of his installation on Tuesday, October 22nd at 10 a.m., will be the 10th anniversary Mass celebration at Rosary Cathedral. So I've already made my reply to the Director of Worship, Mr. Dan Dembski, that I hope to be there to celebrate that Mass with the bishop, having been his housemate for 3 years and serving with him out in the ministry of the priests in our parishes these years.
And you were there when he first got here.
I was. It was great. It was great. He's a really wonderful man, and we are very blessed to have him as our bishop. I don't know where he gets his energy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's up late at night and he's up early in the morning. So we are very blessed to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is going to be a wonderful celebration. There's a lot of events. I think, the Bishop has talked about the fact that this thing is kind of mushroomed, and he wasn't expecting all of those things that are kind of tied to this anniversary.
Right.
He's a humble guy.
Yep.
All right. That music tells us that we're going to our first break. We're about halfway through here, Monsignor.
Okay.
And we're going to take that break. We'll be right back and continue. Monsignor Charles E. Singler, our guest on Faith with Reasons. Ron Finn, Shayne Stanfield, we will be right back.
The effects of abortion are greater than most people realize. It isolates, hurts families, brings about fear, sadness, and grief. It does not need to separate you from God. If you or someone you know is hurting after an abortion, please reach out to Project Rachel at 419-260-5811 or by going to hopeafterabortion.org. Nothing is too great for God's mercy. Project Rachel is here to offer confidential help on your journey to healing.
I lost a mentor recently. Barbara Morgan had taught me how to share the faith while I was at Steubenville as a student. I called to thank her as she lied in her deathbed and to ask her to pray for my work, the work that she had taught me how to do. Amazingly, the person who mentored me in my work didn't seem to care about my work at that moment at all. She said, "Chris, the best thing you ever did was marry Natalie. Hold on to those around your table. Those you brought into the world, hold on to them. Don't forget them. And when you see me again, I'll be before God interceding for your children." It was a great reminder that I can't hear often enough. It's easy to lose yourself in your work, especially if it's work for God. But no matter how lofty your work is, if your vocation is marriage and family life, it pales in comparison to whatever other work God has given you. That work right in your home is the most important work of all. Hold on to those around your table, friends. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com.
This October 22nd is Bishop Daniel E. Thomas's 10th anniversary of installation as Bishop of the Diocese of Toledo. You're invited to help build a spiritual bouquet to present to him with offered prayers, holy hours, masses, fasting, or acts of charity and thanksgiving for his 10 years of service. Anything you wish to include can be submitted at toledodiocese.org/10 years. That's toledodiocese.org/10 years.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Hey, welcome back here. Shayne Stanfield with Ron Finn, and today we're blessed to have live in studio Monsignor Charles Singler. He's the pastor of St. Rose of Lima, Perrysburg. Monsignor's worked in parishes, diocesan offices, and various committees. He's ministered in the office of worship as a coordinator until 1992. Where he was assigned pastor of Bellevue Immaculate Conception, and from there became associate pastor and then administrator pro tem at Perrysburg St. Rose. And then from 1999 to 2003, he was director of the field education and pastoral internship program at Mount St. Mary's Seminary. And you've also served as a Toledo Rosary Cathedral rector for 7 years and director of the Office of Divine Worship and the Office of Vocations. You've also served on art and architecture and liturgical commissions and liturgy committees and Renew 2000 core committees, and it just goes on and on. But I have to add to this bio, sort of look like a chef.
I do like to cook, but I didn't get to cook.
Or dress as well as a chef, as we witnessed last night. We spent the first half hour, at the beginning of that half hour, talking about the wonderful evening that we had last night with a fundraiser for the Sisters of Visitation, and it's just a fantastic evening. But I did have to add that to your bio because you look pretty good in the chef's outfit. So.
There you go. Somebody one time made a chef's hat for me. It said Father Boyardee. Oh.
I bet you still have that.
I do. Yeah,
that's great. But I just touch on something that here in your bio, you were the rector at the cathedral, and,
yes.
and we just mentioned probably toward the end of the first half the dedication of our cathedral. A lot that's going on in this upcoming month. But you said that it was dedicated in 1941. This diocese was formed, I would assume, out of Detroit. Wasn't Toledo part of Detroit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. There was I think there was a I don't know if it was, you would say it would be a canonical debate who was going to get Toledo.
Oh.
I think there was a little bit of a tiff who was going to take Toledo, whether it was going to be in the province of Ohio or was going to be part of the
archdiocese. The Toledo War. Yes, absolutely. But there was no originally, though. Toledo probably from the very beginning was part of Detroit as far as the diocese was concerned. So at one point, what do you know about the decision to form the Diocese of Toledo on its own?
Well, we originally came from the Diocese of Cleveland.
Okay.
And at that time, in those years, there were two dioceses. Cincinnati would have been the archdiocese or the Diocese of Ohio, and then Cleveland was established, and then Toledo broke off from Cleveland. So there's always been kind of a relationship with the north central area of Ohio between Cleveland and Toledo, as far as a working relationship or whatever. And then the other dioceses of Ohio were decided upon, but. Actually, Rosary Cathedral is not our first cathedral. We had another cathedral church, St. Francis de Sales, in downtown Toledo, and which is now, I guess you call it more of a chapel. They still celebrate a daily mass there at noon for the business workers in the downtown Toledo area. But that was our original cathedral, the proto-cathedral as they refer to it. And then Bishop Schrems had this idea as the first bishop that we were going to have a bigger cathedral. And then it wasn't until Cardinal Stritch, who was Bishop Stritch at the time, he kind of put the things into motion as far as the design and what was going to happen.
So we're talking about a little over 30 years.
Oh,
so it was formed in 1910.
Yes.
So you mentioned the last half hour, it was dedicated in 41.
Right.
But that's a massive building. So you're talking about not only the design, but you've got funding. You've got
and don't forget, we went through the Depression as well.
And we entered the war.
Exactly.
So, war had just broken out. Yeah.
And it wasn't until Bishop Carl Alter, who was the third bishop of the Diocese of Toledo, is the one who coordinated the dedication of the cathedral. There actually is a photograph of the first three bishops of Toledo standing in the back sacristy doorway. I have a picture of it. I acquired it when I was down in Cincinnati teaching at the seminary. Somebody had it.
They had it down there.
And I said, well, I don't know why they had it. Well, I do know why, because they were part of the collection of Archbishop Carl Alter, who was the bishop that dedicated Rosary Cathedral.
Okay.
And he had lots of photos or whatever, and so there was a couple extra ones of that day. So there's a picture of Bishop Joseph Schrems, later Cardinal Stritch, and Archbishop Carl Alter standing together on the day of the dedication because they were all there for it.
Wow.
And much like today, bishops are moved around. So obviously they were all alive. They'd just been reassigned and given different responsibilities.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great piece of history.
Oh, yeah.
What a massive undertaking, and to import all of that and then bring marble in, and it's just amazing.
The craftsmanship. I would just say just the murals alone, the paintings in that are just spectacular. You just spend a day just looking.
Well, and what I've appreciated is if you go into the daily Mass chapel at the cathedral, it used to be the sacristy, the main sacristy, many years ago. The portraits of our bishops are in their formal attire, their cassocks and mozettas and zucchettos and pectoral crosses, sitting. All of them are sitting, but all the 7 bishops. Bishop Thomas his painting has not been done yet. So, but a local artist did the last 2 bishops.
Oh, okay.
Bishop Leonard Blair, Archbishop Blair, and Bishop James Huffman. Leslie Adams is a local Toledo painter, graduate from the former Macaulay High School, and Leslie is just a great woman, and she's a great talented artist. And those 2 paintings are just spectacular and very detailed. It almost looks like a photograph of the 2 bishops, Bishop Huffman and Bishop Blair. So her studio was wonderful. We went to watch as she was painting both of those portraits because I was at the cathedral at the time, and it was really wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, are they still doing tours at the cathedral?
Yes.
Okay.
If you call the cathedral, I'm sure they have docents that have been trained to talk about the artwork and I used to boast when I was rector. You can't go wrong with the rector's tour because I could take people in places that the general populace wouldn't
go.
Yeah, I have the key.
Yeah.
But I don't do that anymore. But even I will call and ask if I could lead a little tour of some parishioners or people that would ever be interested to see the cathedral. There are so many wonderful elements, artistically, theologically, spiritually, in our cathedral church.
And not very obvious.
Obvious.
So it really deserves to be led by tours, so you can have this explained.
Yep. Or like the image of the devil that's in the stained glass window in the daily Mass chapel. Unless you knew it, you probably wouldn't notice it.
Really?
Right? Yeah, there's an image of the devil there.
Wow.
Being overpowered, of course.
Yeah.
But or the carving, the wood carving of the pulpit, the grand pulpit at the cathedral. Right on the front, right where the word would be proclaimed, is a carved image of a butterfly, which is a sign of life.
Yeah,
and so all of the symbols and signs. The one that has always stood out in my mind was the former bishop's throne, which now serves as the reliquary for the holy oils in the back apse of the cathedral behind the baptismal font. The image of the pelican, with the small, I guess you call them bird underlings or whatever, and the pelican pecking its breast and droplets of blood to give it nourishment. This whole idea of the sacrifice,
and really
that is what the image and the role of a bishop is to be the chief shepherd, but also be the one to sacrifice himself for the sake of the kingdom,
flock,
the flock.
Yeah.
And so that image still remains in that artistic rendition that's there in the cathedral. Of course, on the statues and the stained glass windows are from York, England, and there's just so much symbolism there. We are very blessed. When I was cathedral rector back in the day, there was an organization, I think they still exist, called the Cathedral Ministry Conference. And every year, all the cathedral rectors of the Catholic cathedrals in the United States, and I think there may have been some in Canada, would get together for an annual conference. I remember one year we were out in Salt Lake City at the Cathedral of the Madeleine, Los Angeles Cathedral of the Angels, Seattle, Washington. We were there one year. And so I took a video of our cathedral disc, and I had like 100 copies made, and took them to this conference and had them there. And these people were looking at this thing and they said, "Where is this place? This is the most beautiful cathedral I've ever seen."
Wow.
And it truly is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen lots of other cathedrals that are not as beautiful as Rosary Cathedral. Not to say that they're not beautiful in their own right, but our cathedral was built at a really wonderful time, and the people that provided the craftsmanship were true artisans that you just do not find anymore today.
Yeah, I think it really is something that's gone by the wayside. I think they're trying to reclaim these, like the masons that are in doing the carvings and whatnot. But
we call them guilds. Yeah.
But so much of that now is automated. I watched a documentary about a really new. It's a new structure, but it's built to look old.
Right.
And it's out west. Right. And it's ongoing.
Yeah.
But the religious order that's in charge of this, they have their own machine shop. So these are all water-driven lathes, and it's all computer CNC, and they use these water jets to do all the carvings for them. But I mean, that's what you're stuck with today, because this used to be human hands that did this sort of thing. You had this artistry, and it's just gone.
Right.
And it's such a shame.
But you can still see it at Our Lady Queen of the Most Holy Rosary Cathedral. And if you've taken the tour before, take another one, because as you say, there's so much to see.
You can't do it in one day.
Yeah,
just one visit.
You could go, once a month for the whole year and learn something new each time.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to be a wonderful celebration for our feast, our dedication of that cathedral. And, of course, Archbishop Leonard Blair is coming back into town.
He is, which I was really happy to see that he's coming back. He just celebrated his 25th anniversary of Episcopal ordination this in August, and he was so kind, because I had lived with him for 10 years, and was so kind in sending me a booklet from the anniversary mass from Hartford, Connecticut. It was celebrated out there, and there's a wonderful portrait picture of him in the back, a photograph that was taken of him, which is kind of like a holy card. And so I sent him a thank you note, and I just told him, I said, I enjoyed my 10 years living with you. He was a great housemate and a good bishop. So it was not an easy time for him. There were a lot of things going on in the diocese, closures of parishes, and a lot of that had been the review of all that had begun under Bishop James Huffman, and then Bishop Blair inherited all that. So he had the challenging task of having to do that. So
how old is he now? I mean, he's 20.
You 75.
He's just emeritus, right?
So 75.
He's retired.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but he'll be the principal celebrant for the October 7th Mass.
Patron or feast day. Yeah.
So that's going to be great, and of course Bishop Thomas part of that as well. So. It's going to be wonderful.
October's a busy time.
I know.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's our month. Big month.
And, of course, we have All Saints and All Souls coming up.
Right. Hopefully this is the precursor to all that. I mean, to be able to have these feasts of the saints that I mentioned earlier, and then to have All Saints, it's just a great it's a great time. The liturgy provides us with a kind of a spiritual storehouse of great graces. And when you follow the liturgical year rather than the calendar year, it's just very interesting to see how it all kind of falls into place. Certain saints' feast days are on the date of their death, which was considered the date their birth into heaven, the day of their death, and so it's really a really great opportunity in the Catholic Church for us to have such feasts and seasons in the context of our faith life.
Yeah, and there's always plenty of them. And as far as the liturgical year goes, it seems like everything is pretty well evenly spaced. But you're right, October just seems like it's got more in it. There's a lot more, and it keeps us busy. Plus, it's kind of a pro-life month as well.
Exactly, that, and again, and many of these saints whose feasts we're celebrating would be great advocates for life, and as a patron or patroness, and leading us to a greater appreciation for the gift of life given to us.
So I've heard it said many times, there's really nothing ordinary about ordinary time, because
exactly.
There's a lot that's going on.
Yes.
Obviously we're not in Advent, we're not in Lent,
yeah.
But there's so much celebration that's going on. If somebody puts the effort into following the daily readings, that's one way to keep track of things. But just for myself, I've only been Catholic for 11 years. In just the relatively short period of time, having done this over and over and over again,
right.
that has made me very familiar with the liturgical seasons and the feast days just by having to practice it annually. But
right.
It doesn't take much effort for someone that wants to go deeper in their faith to follow these feast days closer. And as long as you pay attention to this, then obviously it is a legitimate calendar that one can easily follow throughout the year.
Yeah. Yep. And then, of course, we're just on the cusp of Advent.
Yeah.
So that, I had a meeting earlier this morning with our new director of music and one of my deacons, and I said, well, I guess we got to start worrying about Advent and getting things coordinated for that with the Vespers and the music arrangements that we're going to have for the season, and then of course we go right into Christmas. It's like it's but it's good. It's not that it's taxing. It's just good. It's part of the ebb and flow of Catholic life.
Yeah.
Yeah, some major celebrations, absolutely, and with good reason.
So there's one thing I know that we discussed or we wanted to talk about here before we end the show, and there's the tried and true practice of one entering into the church. Traditionally, it's been called RCIA. It's in the middle of a transition now. People may not hear RCIA anymore; they may hear OCIA.
No, OCIA, the order of Christian initiation.
So maybe you can explain what that was all about.
It was basically a translation issue.
Okay.
As we have the order of Christian funerals.
Yeah.
The order of baptism,
which all of those used to be called rites.
Right.
So they've
Rite of
changed.
baptism.
Okay.
Right.
So they've changed to
Right.
order. So this, like those, is just being renamed.
It's like I think it's more being faithful to the original Latin translations.
Okay.
Order is the word used in the translations for the rites of the church. So, order of Mass. So that basically is the intent of the changing of the language of it. It's hard because we've had RCIA for a while, and you've been used to using that terminology.
With it,
yeah.
Now that's officially changed in 2025. It
starts Advent, I believe.
Right, this Advent.
Advent?
Yeah.
Okay.
So December 1st, I guess. Right?
Yep.
So we're still in that transitional stage, but
I'm using it. We're using the term at our place.
Yeah.
A lot of places have.
Might as well start. I seldom do I hear RCI mentioned, but it's every now and then you'll hear a lay person because they really don't know or they're not familiar with the OCIA. So it's probably good that we discuss that. Now the process hasn't changed. I mean, there's nothing about the way that this happens or takes place where any of this is just the name.
No, what happens usually with a ritual when it comes out in its first edition is in the vernacular language of the country where it's being celebrated. There's a period of time of use, and then there's a review that's done to see if there is need to retranslate, because oftentimes those original translations were just kind of really done haphazardly. There weren't any criteria that were used. Well. Back some years ago, there was a document that the Pope put together called Liturgicam Authenticum, which basically was the desire was to be more, to honor better the translation from the original Latin into the vernacular language.
Okay.
And so they would set a criteria. These have to be met before you can use certain words or whatever. And you have to be faithful to the translation. That was the whole intent of the revision of the Roman Missal back in 2010.
Okay.
That we went through. The former sacramentary then became the Roman Missal. It was always considered the Roman Missal, but we referred to it as the sacramentary before. But the term Roman Missal is what we're using now. But that whole retranslation, really set a whole different track for us. And some of the words that we use, consubstantial in the creed, or prevenient in one of the prefaces during Advent, just are not part of our common parlance and language in the United States. And so that kind of usage of those words requires a little more catechetical, expose and understanding for people so they understand why we say that. But that's a more faithful translation in the use of those words to the Latin itself.
Well, and it's good, too, because it makes you think about the meaning behind it instead of just having it, there.
Well, and we're praying what the Church intends us to pray by using those words. The current issue that's underway right now is the retranslation of the Liturgy of the Hours, the prayers of the Church. So it'll be interesting to see. We've been told that there are going to be some new commentaries put in there with regard to teachings of encyclicals, teachings of the current popes, the modern popes. So I suspect John Paul II's work will be in there, and Benedict XVI's work will be in there. Paul VI had some of his work was already in there in the Liturgy of the Hours for the Office of Readings and the like. But all of those texts are being retranslated. In fact, I think the bishops in their recent meeting this last spring may have even voted or did some preliminary work on that translation, reviewing it, the document. So it goes through a whole series of protocols. We used to refer to them as the green book and the yellow book and the gray book, which were specific translations along the way that were approved. And then finally, I don't remember I've been away from it so long out of the worship office, but they would send the final translation to Rome, and then they would grant the approval if the English translation would be permissible for use. And then they put their stamp of approval on it, and then the United States Conference of Bishops then publishes.
And then it goes to print.
Then it goes to print.
That's what I love about our church. They don't do anything in a hurried fashion.
No.
And everything is prayerfully done. The Holy Spirit is involved in all of it.
Yeah.
And the timing is eternal.
Exactly. Exactly. So that is it's an interesting protocol to follow, but that will be probably the next ritual text that will be reviewed and will be published in new form.
Wonderful.
The last time was in 1975 for the Liturgy of the Hours, so it's time.
So for those that don't follow it electronically, that's a four volume.
Right.
Yeah.
Or there's a 1 volume, what's referred to as Christian Prayer, which would be similar to what you would find in the on the online versions too.
So once this is finalized, those that have that 4 volume.
Well, those of us that pray all the hours, the various hours of the day,
then
that we're required to do, that will be beneficial to us.
Absolutely.
That translation.
Yeah.
But we do the Liturgy of the Hours as a group at St. Rose on Tuesday nights, the clergy, but we have a couple lay people that we've invited and hope that more people would consider that to pray with us the Liturgy of the Hours. It's the prayer of the church. It's not just a clergy thing. We're bound canonically to do those hours of prayer.
Priests and deacons.
And deacons, right. But the laity certainly are permitted to join us to pray that. So
yeah, we have the morning prayer every morning, but you've got 5 different
different hours of the day: midday prayer and mid prayer, midday prayer, mid morning prayer, mid afternoon prayer, evening prayer, and then night prayer. So
and the cool thing about our church is this is being prayed every hour of every day.
Exactly, and we're unified
around the world.
Exactly,
around the world.
Yep. Even the Pope joins us in doing that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Monsignor Charles Singler is our guest here on Faith with Reasons. Always good to have you back. And we always get such a great perspective, not only on liturgical things, but just on the diocese itself and the way the church thinks and the way this kind of manifests in parish life as well. And obviously a lot of things going on in parishes throughout our wonderful diocese. And at your parish at St. Rose, I mean, you've got a little something for everyone. It's a great diocese. I mean, that was the blessing of my work back in the day when I was, in the diocesan office ministries, to see the diocese, operate and there would be communities that would be maybe tweak something just a little bit, given the gifts and the abilities and the talents of their own community versus another community doing the same thing, but maybe tweaking it a little bit more to fit their, particular culture in that particular area. I've always been touched by the rural communities in our diocese. And I only say that because I had the privilege of serving as a pastor in two of those communities out in Putnam County, and I just was touched by the profound faith of those folks out there. Always there for Sunday Mass, 7-8 children lined up in the pews for Sunday Mass.
Wonderful. And
they had their own specific pew, and I used to razz a couple of them. I said, now, years ago we had what was called pew rent, where you were charged so much where you sat. If that was your pew, nobody else could sit in it. Well, they just loved that idea, except for the giving of the money. So yeah, right. I said then we went to dibs. Then we went to collection baskets, but that's been I think the great joy of our diocese is the faith of our people. I think our people are very faithful members of the church. And people, and I say that in a general sense. I just, there's some individuals that, maybe more progressive or those that are strictly conservative or whatever, but that's what makes our diocese so unique. Mm-hmm. Got plenty of time. Well, I was just going to say, the sign, you guys have seen the yard signs out there, love your neighbor with the heart, your neighbor. And that was a concerted effort. One of our Protestant churches in the local Toledo area wanting to promote civility as we get into this political cycle this year. Oh, that's coming up. Yeah. But the thought of just being loving and caring and expressing that and not letting those kinds of issues that separate us, but trying to find things that don't divide us but unite us. Amen. Right. Yeah. Monsignor, could you give us your blessing? I will. Lord Jesus, as we come upon this month of October, the month of Our Lady of the Rosary, the month of life, we ask your blessing upon all of our listeners in our Diocese of Toledo. We ask this through Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.